Today's story is titled, I Still Dance With Her Corpse by GothMomi. The link to the story is in the description below. Please enjoy. There is no reprieve from a broken heart, for it continues to bleed out, having purpose, suffering with unimaginable mental anguish, attached like the two were meant to be together, entwined in the hands of fate. A detachment that cannot be mended, for there is nothing left to mend, because her absence is an abyss in my soul that cannot be filled with anything but her love. Her ethereal manifestation of glory was more than what should have been washed over me, but she took my broken body, and she reinvigorated it with hopes of a better future, a future with her. Was she the non-existence in my veins, or the needles plucked out from my flesh? The oddity of feeling such torment is one that leaves me in despair, and my being is vanquished without her hands to guide me through this endeavorous life. What am I without her instruction? And who am I without her radiant entity hovering over me, that I found to be more than any mere mortal woman? For it was she who directed me through the obstacles, and it was she who stood like a god before me. The grandeur of my affection for such a priceless being was beyond comprehension to any other man who thought they could give her the love she deserved. But it was I that she chose, and it was I who showered her with obsession of intelligence and quick wit. The heart-aching remorse I have in my mind from losing her is like a current taking me under the sea and washing me around until I become a still carcass, one as she is now. I became a tick, thriving off of her life force, as she attempted to hold the world and be the encouraging factor in everyone's lives who depended on her. But it was I who made her tired. For every suck of her blood that was filling my tummy, she was dying, and I had no realization of it, for I was still blinded by her radiance and her endearing smile, which I wish with every atom within my being to see once more upon her face. Her smile is gone now, vanished from the world, leaving only an imprint of something that should have been experienced in person, for it was that endearing and sly that any mere man could fall to his knees in worship of her brilliant beauty. Who was I, or any man for that matter, to cage her away from the world and deprive you of the adventure her song longed to sing? For the notes were all there, and it was a window blocking them from being free. I robbed her of her worth, and disregarded it as if it was a routine act in my life, one I soon came to expect rather than cherish, and I stole her light from everyone who wished to beam upon her glory. I became a leech on her arm that sucked away all that she was inside of herself, leaving her to be a shell of what used to make her incredible. I was now a barricade to letting her be exotic in her way of livelihood, and it was I who stole her breath and made her mundane in the world, as if she was never a goddess to begin with. She became so emotionally lost and mentally disturbed by the change in her life that she couldn't stand to be with the weight that was bringing her down any longer. She was going to leave me, and I could feel it rattling in my bones, for it put a fear into me that only death could manage, and I couldn't breathe any longer as I tried to soak her with adoration once again. There would be nothing left of me if she decided to expel herself from the home that the two of us created, and my teeth gritted at the thought of this. My mind twitched a bit. She began sticking through it, But I felt her longing to leave and start somewhere better with someone who deserved her more. But I couldn't allow such an audacious act to happen, for she was mine, and only mine she would be. She was a wounded bird that I had stowed away in a shoebox, stuck in a place with worthless trash, and the deprivation of attention was attached to this tiny box that she could barely breathe in. I had to keep her this way, for I couldn't let her go, for she couldn't be dismissed from my life, leaving nothing but a shadow that once used to be a resilient woman. She was tortured by my hand, and it was I who suffocated her with my attachment to her life, like the clasp of a bird has to a worm that the bird is taking to its younglings. My vice was so tight around her neck she wore me as a collar, and where she went, I was there to follow, to observe, and to keep threats away from those who might be able to steal her away from me. It was her friends who told you to break from the hold, and it was her parents who whispered actions of running away. But I could not let this poison into her life, and I had to cease this speak out of her life and isolate her in a world where I was in control. When it became too much to bear, she tried to exit my life once more, but I wouldn't let her, for I was the one who locked her up in the bedroom, putting her hands in shackles and telling her, promising her, that I was never going to let her leave. I fed her as much as she wanted, and took her to bathe and use the potty. I was not mean, nor was I harsh to her in any way. My love was still alive more than ever inside me, and I was never going to let that flame evaporate to smoke and smoldering ashes, ever, as long as I was breathing. The disdain and disgust I began to receive from her made me bitter, and the neglect began as a sliver and turned into a swelling wave within a month of her capture. I regret in my heart for not feeding her or letting her use my bathroom, which was right across the hall, and the remorse I feel most is when you made me strike her multiple times to gain her obedience. She had become a scourged dog who was bound and denied basic living arrangements, and at the time, please understand my sorrow for having done this to her. I felt like she was beginning to deserve her maltreated life. Then she tried to escape through the window, screaming to the world about her entrapment, and I had to seal her off in the basement for better keeping. The neighbors were used to the screams by now, for all they thought of it was a domestic order between a couple, which escalated to verbal violence. I cried myself just thinking about the actions I bestowed upon her and how weak I feel, for she was my everything, and I let her down. She was becoming so weak, and I tried not to let her die, but it was inevitable, with the way my treatment had onslaughted her force of life. Her parents had already thought she had moved away to a different state with me, and her friends all knew not to get too close to her, for they knew of my presence in her life, so no one really knew she was missing after she perished in my bondage. I let her rot in her chains until she was a decomposed corpse, and then I embalmed her myself, using formaldehyde I stole from a vet's office, draining her body first of all liquids, and then pumping her full of the disinfecting agent. She was now mine to have forever, until I, too, was to die beside her. But I couldn't let her leave me, so I let her stay. And I built her an entire apartment in my basement. I like to watch TV with her, and our favorite show together is Eleanor. It's quite the soap opera, if you ask me, but she really enjoys the drama. I eat dinner with her, Although I know she doesn't eat anymore, I still try to feed her and wipe away all the food that comes right back out. But most of all, I like to put on music and dance with her as we swing around the room. The new dress I bought for her swaying in twirls around her waist as we hold each other close and move to a soft rhythm of love and adornment. One day, we will have one last dance together, but until then, I will dance with her every night.